know that most of the challenges we face on a team environment are based on emotions, yet we're socialized to ignore emotions at all cost? Imagine if we encompass or respect all of the human instead of taking parts like the IQ and logic. We allow for logical thinking and emotional thinking and intuitive thinking in the business world. So, human centric leading is all about seeing humans as we are in our totality, what we do, what we think, what we feel, not only compartments of it. So, in human centric leading, we integrate back emotions and we start to use them as data. Now, we also drop judgment of emotions. So many of us are socialized to believe that emotions are either good or bad, they are negative or positive, they are difficult or easy, but we neutralize it and we look at all emotions as information or data that nature gives us to help us solve problems at hand. Now, before I go to the tool and a triad example, I want to talk a little bit about the emotional language. Now, Paul Ekman is a psychologist who's been working in the last decades about micro movements, like facial micro movements, and he's traveled around the world to figure out, do all humans have the same emotions or are they culturally or societally based? And he found out that they are indeed human based, and all people feel, he's categorized them in five emotions. So meaning the core emotions are only five, and every other emotion is a derivative or a continuum on this of these emotions. Now, if you might look at this list and you say anger, fear, disgust, sadness, enjoyment, well, a lot of them are negative or unpleasant emotions or emotions we want to avoid, and there's only one positive one. That feels like to a lot of people that it's too limiting. It makes us skewed toward the negative. And people could argue saying, well, humans are, wired for avoiding problems, staying safe. So maybe we do have a bigger vocabulary with let's say, emotions we don't really like or want. And it's also language based. So in the English language, there are a lot more vocabulary for certain types of emotions than others. Now, if you go to another psychologist, Gerald Jampolsky, he takes a much more spiritual mindset. And in his work, he noticed that if you have difficulty learning the emotional language, just learn two, love or fear. That's like the bottom line. So you can ask yourself, if somebody criticizes you and you feel, let's say, agitated or embarrassed, you could say, is that love or fear? Well, it sounds like fear. If you criticize someone, are you doing that out of love or fear? A lot of people say out of love, and that's part of the challenge in the organizational world. Some people are socialized to see criticizing people as love, saying, I love you and I'm telling you what's wrong so you could fix it and then you'll be better. But other people take it as fear. It's like you're scared I won't be perfect, or you want to correct me or control me. Creates a lot of challenges, and that's why we have to start talking about these emotions at work so that we can collaborate and innovate and be creative and really enjoy work. Now, I'm a practitioner, so this is my list. And the list I see, if you notice, these are a lot of emotions that everybody wants to avoid. Yet they're the ones we tend to feel at work at the most, especially in teams that are maybe ineffective or chaotic due to changes in leadership or high turnover or miscommunication and other problems. And these are the ones that firstly that are more common, but also that create a lot of problems when they're not discussed. So that's another benefit of using emotions as data, that we use the emotions to tell us what's wrong in the moment. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you're on a team and you're on a technical team, and some people are not speaking at all in the meeting. But that feedback from them is very important. So you could ask them, what are you noticing? Or do you have any concerns? Or what is your feedback? So instead of saying, what are you feeling? Because that doesn't seem to work well in a business environment. Some people feel that that's not appropriate. You could say, what are your concerns? What's the worst thing that could happen in your mind? What are the obstacles? And then, people talk about their emotions. And so let's say you're angry at, you notice that team member is angry. And you could sense it from the way they behave. They're reactive or curt or rude, or they criticize, judge, blame someone, or they say, well, why do you care? You didn't ask me yesterday. You can tell, you can intuit how someone might feel. And if you can't, you can ask them, like, are you mad at something? Is something going wrong? And they'll likely tell you. Usually when you ask someone for the truth, they usually tell you, especially if you're open to the truth instead of cut it off because you don't want to hear it. So if you notice someone's angry and they say, well, I'm angry because I said this 3 times in the last 3 weeks and now we have a problem, but if you listen to what I said 3 weeks ago, we wouldn't have this problem. So that person was angry because it felt unfair that he wasn't heard and respected, which could have prevented the whole team from experiencing the problem at hand. And therefore, that anger is telling him and everyone else that something unfair has happened. So as you go to learn about each emotion, you're going to learn that it has like a little formula. It has specific information that it gives you, and it's not random. So you're not going to feel angry when you're with your girlfriends or friends having a glass of wine. You tend not to be angry because unfair things tend not to happen when you're with friends at a dinner party. So you wouldn't feel angry. But if you do feel angry, you might feel like, well, something 3 years ago happened and you're still harboring it, and that's okay. Yet you could examine that. It's not happening in the present. What could I do to respond to it? So the easy approach is name the emotion, which helps you express it, like I'm angry. Decode it. What does it mean? Anger is something unfair had happened or some boundary has been disrespected, and then you respond to it. So you either say, okay, well, that was from 3 years ago. What could I do in this moment to respond to what's happening? Or you could say, okay, I'm angry because I wasn't heard, like the example I just gave, and then link it to a specific reason, and you'll start to get really good at noticing why you were angry, why you were frustrated or shamed or guilt, humiliated. And then that helps you firstly become aware of yourself. And secondly, it helps you use that in the moment so that you can express the emotion and then move on. So think of emotions like balloons, So you have a balloon and you pump it with helium. And the more you pump it with helium, you can just pretend it's the emotion not being expressed. So let's say you got angry a week ago, and then you got angry 3 days ago, and 2 days ago, and 1 day ago, and you're mad now, and you're not saying it. So emotions are usually expressed by saying them or in action. So they're always going to be expressed in one way or another, and it's best way to do it in the moment or as quickly as you can so that it doesn't build up like a helium balloon and then it explodes. So think of a time when you were cut off in traffic, or you were late for the 3rd time to work, or something that was relatively small and then you blew up, right? That's an example where you have this helium balloon that all the emotions are not being expressed, and then at one point of stress that's usually unrelated to the emotion, it's like, and then it's expressed, but not in a way that you could actually use it to learn because it's so far away from something else. When you notice your emotions on a daily basis, or even when you get more sophisticated on a moment to moment, but when you say, okay, I'm angry at this meeting, think about, use it then, because your anger is always linked to something logical. And if you remember from the triads tool, there's always a logic between what you think, what you feel, and what you do. And so you can use those to make sense of a situation at hand and solve it. All right?